I have another great guest for you today on the expert series of Sales Talk for CEOs. And I'm really excited because with this expert series, I get to bring you the best of the best. I get to bring you people who are going to give you great ideas to help your company grow. And I know that all CEOs and those who support CEOs want sales growth, especially now where the economy is starting to get a little bumpy again, right, Lisa? So I want to introduce to you my good friend, my mastermind partner, and the author of two best-selling books, the the Top Seller Advantage and the Top Sales Leader Playbook. I'm not doing very good today. I got in from Boston late, so I'm kind of tired. But anyway, she's wrote two terrific books. She has been serving mid-sized companies for many years, helping them grow their sales and close very complex deals that are 5 times bigger than they ever have before. So welcome, Lisa Magnuson. I'm glad to have you on the show.
Thank you, Alice. That was a great introduction. And you forgot to mention that you actually are in both of my books.
Oh, that's right. I'm in both of the books. So that's pretty exciting too. I love that you included me, and thank you so much for that. Your books are really helpful for sales leaders, and any CEO that gets a hold of your books and reads them definitely will hand them to their sales leader right away, and that sales leader will have an actual playbook, right, to deliver on. So I love that.
Yes, true. My second book is actually a playbook and 16 plays, experts backing up each play. And yes, sales leaders and CEOs love it.
So Lisa, you and I have been helping CEOs for years to get what they want, which is more sales. And, you know, in both of our cases, the types of companies we work with, they typically want to get more, grow their sales so they can get a higher valuation for their company. Because at some point, they're going to do something like exit or bring on investors, or the investors want to sell. So there's some reason that they really want to scale their sales. And they don't want to do it slowly. They want to do it fast. And so not only do they want to close more deals, but they want to close bigger deals. But a lot of things get in the way of that. So what do you see, Lisa, when you walk into a company, when they've said to you, hey, we want to close bigger deals? What are you seeing?
What I see is, for a small company, a startup, maybe they have one. Maybe they started with one, and they see how valuable that is. They see how it's a reference to attract other big companies. They see how they can expand within that big contract, and so they want more naturally. But the one probably came through some vehicle that wasn't quite as onerous as what it takes to get
to get more, right? Right.
And so really with small companies, they have to have a culture of winning big deals. And that culture has to include everybody in the company, starting with the CEO. And I can talk more about that, but it's really just that culture of attracting those big deals. And when you have that, it's a game changer for the company. You can do all those things that you mentioned.
Yeah. So from startup to mid-sized company that's 10, 20 years old, right? They may have gotten these really large deals because the CEO knew somebody or somebody referenced them. And so they came in the easy way, right? And then they see how important these large deals are. And like you said, they're so referenceable, right? And they're like, how do we get more? But they don't seem to have any sort of system in place that allows them to get those big deals. So let's talk about that. What do they have to do? So here they are. They've got their pipeline full of kind of, their average deal size stuff, a lot of smaller stuff sometimes, and one or two of those really big deals. But they really don't seem to have the skills, the knowledge. I'm not sure what it is, Lisa, to really go after more of those big deals and fill their pipeline with more of those opportunities.
Well, you're exactly right when you say the system, because, I think we all know that big deals, complex deals are messy.
Yes, they are.
Move forward and and they move backwards, and you think you have that executive sponsor, and then that person changes, or they're not the executive sponsor, or they
leave the company,
or maybe I've had situations where they step back because they don't want to dominate.
Right.
So, changing the culture or creating a culture of big deals really starts at the top, where you put that stake in the ground and say, we are going to do what it takes to get involved with these messy, complex, big deals, and we're going to make sure our people will allocate the time, and we're going to make sure we have a system like you talked about, and we're going to make sure that we have resources, and in some cases, different expectations. Big deals don't always follow our calendar year, or quarterly
right
forecast.
They don't fit in our quotas, do they?
But if you put that stake in the ground, then all of those things sort of come into play and can flex to accommodate those big deals. And once you sort of have that framework, then it's really a framework that will pay dividends for years.
Okay, so it's got to start with the mindset. That was really clear, right? Yeah. So you said they've got to have a culture or a mindset that they want to go after big deals. Now, I think all companies think, let's go get more big deals, but that's not the same as having a mindset and a culture that goes after big deals. Just thinking, we want more big deals. So you mentioned that it starts with the CEO. And, I think everything about sales, starts with the CEO. That's what I profess constantly, because the CEO, as we know, can be the chief sales prevention officer if they're not careful. So if truly companies want these larger deals more often, they have to first get the right mindset, and they have to be willing to make some changes, put a system in place, apply the resources, and know that these large deals don't fit into their rule book of we close this many per quarter, blah, 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 because large deals take a long time. They're complex for a reason, right? And all of the things that make them complex extend the sales cycle out, including large dollar stakes, multiple people involved in the buying decision from the buyer side. And nowadays, also from the seller side, so many people get involved in these big deals. So it is complex. So let's say a CEO, does put that stake in the ground, like you said, and we are going to have the mindset that we can bring in big deals. We are going to put the resources aside to do it. Now we need a system. So let's talk about the system, Lisa, that they're going to need in order to bring those big deals in.
Well, the system, and my playbook is kind of broken into 4 parts, because the system has to include the company culture, then it has to include the sales leadership, so the VP of sales or the sales managers, and then it has to include the sellers and what they're going to do and their business acumen, and then there's all the tools and things that support it. And so it's really kind of that 4-part system, and all those parts of the engine have to be in motion for the engine to really churn out the big deals that you want. But just sort of starting with that CEO. That CEO, it's not enough just to say we want big deals, and it's not enough for the sales leaders to bring your top 2, bring your top 5, bring your top 10, and then nothing. That's just the start. It's not the end by any means. The CEO has to allocate time to be involved with strategy sessions on these big opportunities. Some of the opportunities might be a year out. Some of the opportunities might be, months out. It doesn't, it's those opportunities, and the CEO, they can't be part of all of them, but they drop in strategically to add value.
Stop there for 1 second. That was really important, Lisa. CEOs should be brought in strategically to add value. That is what I heard you say, because the CEOs cannot be in on every deal, but on these, 5X, 10X, 100X kind of deals that you want, maybe your average deal size $100,000 and you want to get 100,000. Okay, that's a little bigger, but really what you want is those 500,000 and $1 million dollars, right? So when you're working on those, if the team learns how to position people, and prioritize positioning them, right? And then bring the CEO only in at the right time when they can be strategic, when they can add value. That's when it's going to make a big difference.
And that right time, I mean, it's at the beginning, because the CEO will have lots of ideas at the beginning. Let's say you're going after $1 million deal and you've put the team together and it's your first or second strategy session and you invite the CEO to participate. That person's going to have tons of ideas. They might know people. They might have been down this path before. So they can share their expertise and experience to kind of get the team kicked off. Then the team, goes about doing the work, the strategy work that they're going to do internally to prepare for external, engagement with their prospect. But the CEO probably is going to be brought back in for some strategic meetings. And so that's the next time that there's that strategic touch point from the CEO, because you want to do that executive to executive match. And that might be one conversation. It might be multiple conversations over multiple years. And then the CEO should also come back in at a minimum, to celebrate the deal. Companies, don't celebrate their big successes as much as they probably should, because those win celebrations for the 5X deals about 5X your average deal size. Those are gold. Those are just fun. Those create deposits in the bank of that big deal engine. And the CEO should absolutely come back in, recognize the team, recognize the effort, and really reinforce.
Great momentum, right? It's huge momentum when you close a 5X deal or more. And not only should we celebrate internally with our own team, we should celebrate with our customer now. And the CEO can be such an important part of. We're so glad to have you as our customer. They could write a lovely note or a letter. They could send a gift. They could just get on a Zoom call or go to an in-person meeting and just celebrate together now that we've started this partnership that's going to move forward and benefit both of us. So I think that celebration thing, we overlook it. We really overlook it.
And we do. You're exactly right. And when you get that big contract, not only do you want your CEO to celebrate internally with the internal account team, and externally, but now you want your new client's CEO or senior executive to come in and kick off the project. And you want that person involved from the beginning. Maybe you had some touch points, throughout the sales process, but now you want to cultivate that executive over multiple years in the right way. And that starts with that person, joining the kickoff.
Yes.
Session. So,
yes. I think that's so important, especially with rollout of any kind of software where we're going to need user adoption from the highest level at the customer. We have to help them understand how important it is that they help with that rollout, right? Because that makes it, just better for both of us. Makes it better for their company because they get higher user adoption, they get better results. Makes it better for us because they are more successful, which means they're more likely to do more business with us or renew or whatever the case may be. So these celebrations and recognizing, here we are. We're celebrating that we did something good together, and we're going to roll it out. I love that. Now, I think that CEOs. Oh, go ahead.
One quick point about that. So, generally, if it's a really big deal, the team's already met their executive sponsor, and so you want to, cultivate that person we were just talking about. But sometimes they haven't,
True.
Or there's other executive sponsors beyond the person that you met, and that's also the time that you want to bring those people in, because you're not in a sales process, and they want to make sure they're going to get the impact that they signed up for, and they want to recognize their people too. So that whole notion of celebration, it's like a multiplier effect in terms of all the good that can happen. And for those really big accounts that you want to keep for years and years and years, that's
absolutely. It also makes them more likely, if you start out right, it makes them more likely to maintain the relationship with you throughout, which is another great thing. So I think that CEOs might be worried that their sales teams are going to depend on them, right, for these large deals. And in a way, their sales teams are going to depend on them. But one of the things we have to teach the sales teams is how to, like we said, utilize the CEO and other senior executives. It's not just the CEO. Some other senior executives can be very useful on these large deals. But we're going to use them wisely. We're going to bring them in at the right time. We're going to help them know what to say. And so a part of this system that you always talk a lot about, Lisa, is call planning. And, okay, I'm a salesperson and I admit it. You are too, right? We are great at winging it. We can just get into a meeting and, wing it. But, when we do that, we can tend to miss things and lengthen our own sales cycle because of it. So an important part of a 5X strategy is to always do the planning. So all the people who are involved in the meetings on your side are prepped, and some of the people on the other side are prepped as well. You go to them and say, okay, I've prepped my team. This is what we're going to be doing, and I want you to be aware. So it's very transparent when we have these meetings. Everybody knows what's going on. So let's talk about call planning. What are some of the key things that, this is what makes it possible. If you're going to put a large team together, you can't move a deal forward unless you do the proper planning.
You know this, Alice, literally my favorite topic. Pre-call prep, because it's where the rubber meets the road. And if you are having productive, prospect meetings, client meetings, you're always going to get more. And when you think about utilizing the CEO appropriately, if it's a big opportunity, maybe the account team comes together and they do the first pass of pre-call prep. They think about what the prospect wants to get out of the meeting, not their big goal. What do they want to get out of this meeting? What would make this meeting great for them? Then they think about what they want to get out, and then they think about some possible next steps, and they go through all that. They analyze the people that are going to be in the meeting, all the kind of things you do during pre-call prep. But maybe they bring the CEO in after they've done that work and just share the work that's already been done. Here's what we're thinking. Here's kind of how we see your role in it. And so set them up for success, but they don't always have to go through the whole pre-call prep meeting. Because if you're pre-call prepping for an executive meeting, that's going to probably be an hour and a half kind of prep session, and the CEO might only have 15 minutes. And so you have to honor their time in that way, but they do have to come into the prep. They do have to be prepared. I was working with a client recently, and it's a company I've worked with for a long time, and I work with their CEO, and I work with their VP of sales, and I work with their managers, and I work with their people. So I was working with their people on this, their account executives on this huge opportunity. And we were talking about pre-call prep, and and the call was going to happen with the CEO, with their CEO. And so we were basically doing this exact thing. We kind of did the first pass, and then it's like, now you're going to have the conversation with the CEO, so you're all on the same page for that call. So that all happened. The call was super successful. The account executive comes back and goes, boy, our CEO is way on board with your pre-call prep. He even called it that during our meeting. Are we going to do the pre-call prep? When are we going to do the pre-call prep? Made me feel really good. But it's just invaluable, and there's levels of prep, but with big deals,
cannot skip it. And here's what I hear from sales teams. They're like, oh no, don't bring the CEO in. He or she goes off on a tangent, or does this, or they'll promise things we can't do. That especially in earlier stage companies that are maybe, at the 5-year mark and stuff, where they're still kind of developing things. But even in the companies I work with that are like 20 years old, sometimes they're just afraid to bring their senior executives in because they never know what's going to come out of their mouth. Well, pre-call prep solves that problem to some degree. I mean, we can't control our senior executives, but the reason they do that is because they show up and they think they're supposed to add insight and look smart, and they don't know what to do unless you tell them what you need from them. So here's where we are with this account so far. Here's all the players that we know. Here's the next step. This meeting, the purpose of this meeting is this. Here's the role I need you to play. Here's what we'd like you to talk about. Stay out of the weeds and just talk about, this higher level stuff, whatever it is you want your CEO to talk about. They'll be so relieved because they know what you want from them. They know what their part is, and then they don't have to step all over you or take over the meeting because they know what to do. And so people who are afraid to put your CEO in front of people, just simply prep them and you won't have that problem anymore.
You couldn't have said that better. It's CEOs are exactly like the rest of us. They don't want to be embarrassed. They don't want to be unprepared, especially because of their title and their role and their reputation. And so it's really incumbent on that account team to, if the call goes poorly and the CEO is not prepared, and we've all had calls like that, like really bad sometimes. But it's really the account team owns that. They need to do whatever is required to make the CEO successful in whatever the interaction is going to be with the prospect or the client, period. And when that occurs, it's just magic. And when you're lucky enough to have a CEO like the client story I was just talking about, they just have this awesome CEO who everybody loves to prospect and clients love to meet with. And when you have that, then it just is better. It's just the icing on the cake. But even if you have somebody that's not as comfortable, maybe a little awkward, you can have a awesome interaction and make that person shine with.
So all of you CEOs out there that are listening, don't let your reps drag you into a call where they haven't prepped you. If they say to you, I need you to be on a call, you say, great, when's the prep meeting? And do not let them invite you to a meeting where there's no call prep. Just tell them no. I will not be on any call where there is no call prep. It's simply a must because the whole purpose of bringing the CEO in is to make that CEO look smart and allow them to share insights and make the customer feel comfortable, right? And if we don't prep, we can't do that. So CEOs, it's up to you. Just say no. That's it. Just say no. If you're.
And I have clients over the years where that's the case, and not just the CEO,
yes,
the VP of sales, same thing. It's like if there's not a pre-call prep session, I'm not going on the call. And it's the first time. If that hasn't been the culture, and the first time you say that, if you're a VP of sales or the CEO, and then you don't go on the call, the message will come across pretty fast.
Right, exactly. All right. So, just watch what happens when you say no, CEOs, or sales leaders. Your team is going to be like, what? We planned the call. Yeah, well, you're going to have to postpone it unless you have time to prep me. So they'll learn real fast to do it. But one of the big problems that I see, Lisa, although it's changing now, but this lone wolf sales type, right, going out to land these 5X deals. They're enterprise reps. They're used to doing it. And in the old days, honestly, they could knock them down, right? They could go in and sell these, $100,000, $500,000, $1 million deals without much help because the world was quite different, 10, 20 years ago. Today, we know that isn't working anymore. And where I see companies failing is the ones who have not adopted a team strategy towards these larger accounts. And I see this one salesperson trying to go it alone, and it simply doesn't work. So for those out there who have already started to understand that they need to build a team, that's terrific. But let's talk about what that team structure should look like. So here we have the main salesperson. A lot of you call them account executives, AEs, right, for short. And they've got a list of really, really big companies that they're prospecting that can pay $500,000 or millions of dollars, or at least lifetime value of millions of dollars. So they know who they're going after. They've probably done their homework and know which titles they're going to need to get in touch with in order to get a conversation and get an opportunity open. At what point should they start building their team, and who should be on these large deal teams?
That's a great question, Alice, and it kind of depends on the company size. And so, in a small company, it's actually harder because maybe they don't have any resources. So they have to really think about, who is the team? Is it myself and the CEO? Is it, because that's all we have. But sometimes there's partners that you can reach into a partner organization. They can be part of a team as long as they're not a partner.
Right.
Competitors as well, then you have to be careful. But for an organization that has some resources, really, I like to think of the core team and the broader team. The core team are the people that are going to benefit from the contract. So, not just compensation, but, the CEOs benefits from any big contract, sales leader, probably the same thing. But there are other people, potentially, technical people, professional services, maybe an account manager, maybe marketing.
Yeah.
Who are those people that are going to benefit from the contract and add value? And
hold on right there, because that's important. So don't just add people to your team to add people to your team. You said add value. Who are the people in your company that should get on your team that can add value? Because sometimes the marketing person, depending on what you're selling, could be a really key player. A senior marketing leader could be a really key player. And in other times, why would you even put them on your team, right?
Exactly. And I think one of the things I talk about in the book that's so important is really designating that account quarterback, because, it seems obvious, but it's actually not obvious, because, it seems obvious that the account quarterback would be the account executive or the national account manager or, some title like that. But sometimes the sales manager comes in and acts like the account quarterback for a period of time, or the VP of sales, or the CEO even. And so really designating who is that account quarterback, and that person is the person responsible for engaging the account team, figuring out who is going to add the most value, has something to gain from the win, and who are just the resources. So let's say marketing's not part of the core team, but maybe they're a resource. So do they have to come to every strategy meeting? No. That's not a good use of their time, and it also detracts from what the account team needs to do. So that account quarterback is the first person that needs to be designated. And I encourage teams that are going to be together for long periods of time. These are temporary teams. Yeah. In some cases, in larger organizations, people on the team report to different managers. So these temporary teams are going to come together around this account opportunity. I encourage them to talk through roles and responsibilities. It doesn't have to be a long conversation, but it's very helpful to establish that up front. And then they can move on from there. And it solves a lot of downstream issues about, who is the quarterback, who's the core team, who are the resources, who's responsible for communication and how, where are the account strategy documents going to reside, who's going to keep those updated? Is it everybody? Is it one person? Yeah. Just all sort of mechanics of that team coming together. So that's a little bit of a longer answer.
No, it's good. And it just makes me think, right, today, because we have these teams, I want to be clear, Lisa and I are not telling you to do the salesperson's job. The salesperson has a job. But what it makes me think is that, we could do a better job in every company that I've worked with, in the past 5 years, of clearly defining the roles. Now, people have a role in a company, but once you form a team, a temporary team for one of these large accounts, you also take on a role on that team. What is your role? So if let's just say the salesperson, the AE, the account executive, is the one doing the orchestrating. They're the quarterback. They're deciding, who they need. Of course, their leader will help them garner resources if they can't garner them on their own. So let's say they're being, that quarterback. Then also they need to help the people they bring onto their team know what their role is. What is their job? who are they matched against at the customer and charged with keeping in touch with? What type of information do we want them to bring to the table? What insights do we want them to be responsible for? What updating of CRM or documents do they need to do? Like you said, okay, most people use Salesforce or some CRM, but Salesforce doesn't capture everything we need for a big deal. So we're going to need a link from Salesforce to somewhere, your Google Docs, your SharePoint, with a folder full of everything that we need. Who's going to organize that? So I think people are maybe going, oh my gosh, this is going to take a lot of time and orchestration. And the answer is yes. But when you land that $1 million deal, it will be so worth it. And one of my clients just landed a $4 million deal with a government agency who I won't name because I don't want to give anything away, but a big government agency that you all would know. And it took 2 years. And it's not unusual. People who all knew what their role was. A lot of it, of course, in that case, because they sell software and it has to be integrated, that was with, system engineers and other kinds of, architects, people who architect things, I forgot what they're called. But it took a lot of work from different people, but they all knew their role.
And sometimes you have to bring those people in early in the sales process when those people have never been brought in before. If it's a big deal, like one of my clients, we landed a $40 million deal. It was huge, and actually it was under a year, just under a year. We were pulling people into the sales process that had never had a role before, the implementation people. But in this case, this deal was a long shot. The prospect liked another company better. They even had some misperceptions about my client. And so we had to pull out all the stops, including bringing implementation people into sales meetings so that prospect could see the competence, could see what was going to happen. And so there's a perfect example of, the team has to be organized enough and clear enough on the roles and of the core team and the resources and how to bring those people in at the right time.
Yeah, you got to show up and look good, right? You got to show up and look good, especially when you're, maybe between 20 and $100 million in size yourself, and you're trying to sell to a $5 billion company. They're looking at you and going, oh, little company, how long have you been around? Will you stay in business? Can you really support my big company, right? And we have to mitigate that risk by putting this team together, pulling in the proper resources and showing them, yes, we do have the proper resources to support you.
Exactly. Smaller companies selling to bigger companies, all the bigger companies see as risk. And so it's the account team's job to identify that and to figure it out.
And that is also the reason for bringing the senior executives in, because even though your $80 million company isn't going to get to talk to the CEO of a $5 billion company, they will get to talk to like a GM or a CTO or a CMO or someone higher level. And that's very, very important to show we're smaller, but we're mighty and our CEO is behind us. And that is why we will be successful. So I think that is just so critical. So as we wrap up here, Lisa, how can CEOs and sales leaders, I always say CEOs and all of those who support the CEOs to grow their sales organizations and increase their sales and increase their valuation, how can they start to assess where they are in terms of being really ready and able to land these very large deals? Whether I'm 5 years in or 20 years in, and I've decided, yes, I have the mindset, I'm ready to go, we're putting a stake in the ground. How can I assess how ready we are to really do a good job going after large accounts?
There's different levels of assessment, but actually I created a really simple assessment that goes with my book. And anyone that buys the book and enters in their Amazon receipt number can just get that assessment from my website as a download for free. and for just the cost of the book. And it's an assessment for the key things in each of the 4 areas that the book covers. So the book has 4 areas, 16 plays total, all practical worksheets, a lot of the stuff we talked about today, like roles and responsibilities, there's a worksheet for that. Pre-call prep, there's a worksheet for that. Win themes, there's a worksheet for that. But the assessment is a downloadable resource as well, and I don't think it needs to be overly complex. There's 4, 5, 6 items to assess inside of each of the 4 parts.
Remind us those 4 parts. You said them earlier, but we want CEOs and sales leaders to look at what 4 things.
It's really the company culture around big deals. It's the sales leadership and what needs to happen with them around big deals. It's the people that are selling the big deals, the account executives, national account managers, whatever, account managers in some cases. And then It's the tools that support all that. It's the system that they're going to go through to get from, wow, we think we have something, and then the opportunity, like to score that opportunity as an example. There's a scoring just for an opportunity in the book as well. But so we think we have something all the way through to, wow, we do have something. Now we are going to get that thing. Now we got the thing. How do we keep it and expand it? So it's all the tools in the system that kind of support those people.
Right. And we've been talking about landing these 5X deals. We haven't even got into expanding them once you land them. So I'm going to have you back on the show so we can specifically talk about expanding, because that's so important also. But Lisa, I can't thank you enough. As always, I just love, oh my gosh, we've known each other for so long, and I always enjoy every conversation that we have. And so I really appreciate you sharing all of this with my audience here on Sales Talk for CEOs.
Thank you.